little bit of divisions around the league right now. What's your thoughts right now on the East, John? We've talked about it before, but through training camp now, the Cowboys have added some guys. They got Von Miller. They got, they have some dudes they've added to that defense. They have Caleb Downs now, who they drafted. I think they're probably the only real threat to some extent in the East, but still big question marks on that defense. We'll run through some division talk right now. What's your thoughts on some of the other teams in the East right now? What's your outlook for the year for this division? NFC Least or NFC Beast?
No, I think it's similar. You got the haves and the have-nots. The haves are the Eagles and the Cowboys. The have-nots are the Giants and the Commanders, although I do think both of those organizations are better than they have been. They're just a ways off from a talent perspective. New York specifically, finally getting Harbaugh in there, I think they're going to start making better decisions. Washington, he had the little spike, but they look like a disaster waiting to happen. I mentioned Nikki Havala, who covers that team, calling the offensive line inoperable. That's not a good sign for your injury-prone quarterback. And if they lose Daniels again, season's over. All due respect to Marcus Mariota, who I like and is a good dude. He's a good backup quarterback, by the way. One of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL, but you don't want him playing as much as he played last year. The Cowboys are very, very talented. So to me, it comes down to what Christian Parker can do with that defense. The offense is going to be good. It's top 10 offense at worst, top 5 probably. And they were one of the worst defenses in NFL last season. You have Christian Parker taking over. It's got to be better. How good is it, though? Can they get to be middle of the road? Then they could be a problem. So it all hinges on the defense in Dallas, but overall, the Eagles should be the favorites, are the favorites.
What do you think of the personnel moves that the Cowboys made?
Well, I mean,
they got Rashawn Gary, Caleb Downs, Malachi Lawrence. They drafted.
I love Caleb Downs.
Von Miller, right? They added Von Miller.
I think they overdrafted Malachi Lawrence. I think Caleb Downs was one of the 2 best players in the draft. And they're going to start him in a Cooper DeJean role where he's playing multiple things. They list him as their slot corner now, but he's probably going to play safety slot. And I think he's going to be a big time player. How quickly they get to that. Rashawn Gary's a good player, but he's not what he once was. They still need an edge rusher. They drafted Malachi Lawrence, as you mentioned, in the first round. They also drafted Overton in the 4th round. So they tried to carpet bomb that. You had a pass rusher. You went in a different direction. And they're still looking for it. And maybe, you had Von Miller, who's, I'm convinced will be a senior citizen, could get off the couch and probably get to the quarterback. But he's not what he once was. He's not Defensive Player of the Year, Von Miller. So he might get 8-9 sacks. Maybe Donovan Ezeraku is the guy who needs to develop when it comes to rushing the pass.
Yeah, he played where at BC, right? Boston College. Yeah. They also signed a couple secondary pieces as well. They signed
they got Kobe Durant from the Rams.
Jalen Thompson, yep.
Jalen Thompson from the Cardinals. So they have more talent, And Christian Parker, I think, has a better feel for the modern way of playing defense than Matt Eberflus. So I think that should be an upgrade. But until they get a representative pass rush, I think they'll continue to struggle. And they got a bunch of guys. when you talk about Ezeraku and Gary and Lawrence and Miller, and even if you want to go to Overton as a 4th-round pick and yada, 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 you just need one to hit, but you need one to hit. You can even go to Sam Williams. They got a bunch of guys who can play. It's like the Eagles, a wide receiver. But do they have anybody who's a star and who could be a difference maker? Probably not. Not yet.
Did the Eagles win the division?
Yeah, they should, but it'll be very close. It'll probably be come down to the 2 games against each other.
Yeah. All right, good stuff there on the NFC East. John, NFC North is really interesting this year. I think they're all good. Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Chicago.
Yeah, I'm picking Detroit. I'm not wavering because they have the 4th place schedule. And they're going to pull off the Bears thing last year. Simply because their schedule's easier. That's where I don't think they're as good. I think their window is closed as a Super Bowl contender. 2 years ago, that was their shot when they were the best team in football for most of the regular season. So by no means do I think they're what they once were, but they're still good. They have Drew Petzig now as the offensive coordinator, who at least has some experience versus Johnny Morton, who they tried last year to replace Ben Johnson. Offensive line isn't what it once was, but they still have Gibbs. They still have Amon-Ra. They still have Jameson Williams. I like Isaac Tesla. I think he's going to get better. They still have Penei Sewell up front. They drafted Blake Miller, who was a guy I thought the Eagles might have some interest if they traded back. Defense, they still have Aiden Hutchinson. They still have Jack Campbell. And if they could ever keep that secondary healthy, but they can't. Brian Branch is a great player, but he's always hurt.
Always, yep.
Kirby Joseph is a great player, but he's always hurt. They did
Minnesota and Green Bay are both really interesting to me too. I mean, Minnesota has a great roster. They had a horrible quarterback. Kyler Murray, I know people are out on him, but he doesn't have to be that good to turn that team around.
To me, it's all about Kyler. If he plays well, they're going to be a good team. They're going to be a very good team. If he doesn't play well, they're going to be up Schitt's Creek. That's been their whole thing. They've had disgusting quarterback play. And they should have kept Sam Darnold. That's one of the worst decisions in the modern era. Flores is, what I feel about him. The defense is going to be good, similar to here. The defense is going to be good. It's just a matter of how good. And that offense is, we talk about, I just talked about Atlanta and safeties. You talk about skill positions. Who has a better receiving trio than Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and they signed Jawan Jennings away from San Francisco?
Yeah. That's good, dude.
And they still have Hawkinson, who, was hurt last year, but he's still a big-time receiving tight end. Could get better at running back, but I think Jordan Mason's underrated. Aaron Jones is still there. It's all up to Kyler. I mean, that's a team, and that's why they couldn't go with J.J. McCarthy this year, because it's a team that's ready to win now, and you can't just hope. And then Green Bay is just Green Bay, man. They're solid. Jordan Love is probably, in my opinion, the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. I think Kyle McCord's going to make that team, by the way. But we'll see. He's the third quarterback right now. I suppose they could go outside. We talk about their receivers a lot because the Eagles traded to Dontavian Wicks. The top four are Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, and then Sky Moore. They signed Sky Moore or Savion Williams, who was a third-round pick a couple of years ago. So they're very good. They are having some problems on the offensive line. That could be a problem for them. So Tucker Kraft is coming back. He's a monster. Hopefully he'll be healthy. And on defense, it's funny because when they hired Jeff Hafley, I criticized him, but he turned out to be a good defensive coordinator. And now he's a head coach in Miami. Now they're bringing in JG, Jonathan Gannon. So we'll see if he can keep it going. But, they're going to be good when Micah comes back. But when is Micah coming back? That's
when is he right now? When are they saying? October, November, somewhere in there?
Yeah, more October, November. So they're going to be playing without him early in the season, and they need to persevere until he gets back. So they might fall back early and then come on late. That's how I project it. But all four of those teams could win that division. It is a very good division, very deep division. But I'm betting on Detroit because they're playing the fourth place schedule like Chicago was, and Chicago's playing the first place schedule like Detroit was. And I think we're going to flip the script. Exact same thing happens. Chicago's coming back to the pack. Might even be a better team, but they're coming back to the pack. And Detroit's going to spike again because of the schedule.
We'll see. That's a good division though overall in the NFL this year. We'll see what happens there. John, who you got in the South? I think our guy Kellen Moore might get it done this year, but we'll see.
Well, I talked about him earlier when I was talking about safeties. I think Atlanta is the most talented team, but they don't have a quarterback. And I'll default to where I always default. Tampa. Baker's playing for a contract. I think that's meaningful. But this is another division where all four could win it. I'm not as high. I think New Orleans is clearly the worst of the four. But if Tyler Shuck is better than I think, that could change very quickly. But the one part, Atlanta is the most talented. You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London, you got Kyle Pitts, you got a big time offensive line with Matthews and Lindstrom, at least parts of it. Now the pass rushing situation hurts because James Pierce is a lunatic. And who knows how long he's going to be suspended for? Did they announce that suspension? Did I miss that?
No, I don't. I don't think I saw it, but
somebody in the chat, if you know, let me know. If I did, I missed it. I'm kind of bogged down with training camp with the Eagles, but that was a nasty situation. So I can't believe he's not going to get some kind of significant suspension. They did bring in Zadarius Smith, but he's limited at this stage to be a rotational player.
Is it 8 games? 8 games for James Pierce?
Is it? I don't.
Yeah,
that would
games.
Be. Yeah. So significant. That hurts. Great safeties, as I said. He even had Billy Bowman, who they're one of the teams. A lot of teams go 3 safeties now, and because they have such good safeties. And AJ Terrell, they have one of the best secondaries in football, the Falcons. So, but they don't have a quarterback. So it's hard to pick them. Carolina is the defending champions, and I think, but would they win 8 games? I don't know. I not a big Bryce Young guy. I think I've seen enough there. He's average quarterback. He's not terrible, but I don't think he's going to help you. And the roster strikes me as average. I don't see, like, you see a lot of difference makers in Atlanta on the roster. I don't see that with the Panthers. Ted McMullen had a nice rookie year. The offensive line, you don't really have Ikwanu hasn't jumped off the page early in his career, and I think he's hurt. They drafted Monroe Freeling, a lot of hype on him, so maybe he can get on the field early. Tight ends, not great. They got a lot of them. That could be a team. They have their starters, Tommy Tremble, and then they have Darren Waller, who's signed, trying to reclaim his career. Mitchell Evans, who is a good blocking tight end 3. Jatavian Sanders, who was a big-time college player. So they have a lot of guys who can play, but none of them that really stand out. Same thing in the backfield with Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks. Okay. They just don't look like a contender to me. J.C. Horn's their probably best defensive player. Derek Brown's good as well. But and
What do you think of
and our old friend Jalen Phillips, I can't forget him.
Yeah. What do you think of the West, John? NFC West, Rams, Niners, Cardinals, Seahawks.
Woo! Well, the Rams are loaded, but guess what? Puka's going to get suspended.
Is he?
Well, the Rams are acting like it because they just reacquired Tutu Atwell.
Puka and Nakua, is he? What are they going to suspend him for?
Oh, man, he was off the rails. He had to go to rehab. He was biting.
Yeah, but is that suspension worthy?
He was biting women on the back or something. He's getting suspended. I don't know if it'll be 8 games, but the Rams are certainly operating with the thought that he will be suspended.
Schefter reported earlier this month that Nakua could still be suspended for his various offseason transgressions.
Oh yeah, there were a bunch of them. That's what I mean. He was off the rails for a while. He to the point, he had to go to rehab for alcohol.
Was that PR?
Well, probably, but that's another, But I mean, the biggest allegation was that he bit a woman on the shoulder and her friend on the thumb. As I'm looking at it, and I saw the pictures. There was a bite mark. So, I don't know if he did it, but somebody did it, allegedly, and we'll see. But you can only the Rams.
What'd you get suspended for? Oh, I bit somebody. I mean.
The Rams are certainly operating like they expect a suspension. It might be 2 games, might be 4. It's not going to be 8 games like James Pierce, but all of a sudden, if he's not there, their wide receiver group, you still have Devontae Adams, but not a lot of proven beyond that. Other than that issue, they're probably the best roster in football. And that's without Aaron Donald. If Aaron Donald decides to come back, makes it even better. We'll see what Myles Garrett turns it into. But they're very good. And they're going to win that division. I think San Francisco is going to have a bad year. I think Arizona's bad, and Seattle is a good team, and they'll be battling with the Rams. The defending Super Bowl champions, who are very similar to what they were last year. They lost the running back. Why can't I think of his name? Kenneth Walker. who was a Super Bowl hero. But I mean, Zach Charbonneau was just a bigot before he got hurt, was arguably playing better. So they should have him back at some point. And they drafted Ja'Jarian Price in the first round. We'll see what he does as a rookie. And they lost a couple other pieces, Reek Woolen being most notably on defense. But they really kept it together for the most part. And they're very good on defense. Obviously, you see it with, their head coach is a defensive-minded guy, and he's, on the cut. He's one of the cutting-edge defensive coordinators. Leonard Williams just signed an extension. Byron Murphy looks like a monster. Jaron Reed's a good player. DeMarcus Lawrence is still playing at a high level. Ernest Jones. Devin Witherspoon is, if not the best cornerback in football, in the conversation. Julian Love has been a playmaker ever since he got there. Nick Emenwari was one of the best rookies last year, probably got underdrafted in the second round. People missed on that, at least in Mike McDonald's scheme. They're very good, the Seahawks. So it'll be, I think, similar to the NFC East. Two-horse race. I don't think the 49ers are talented enough to take advantage of the best play designer in the history of football. And I say that facetiously, but he is the best in the current environment. And I just don't think they have the horses. I mean, they're going back. They signed Mike Evans and they brought back Deebo Samuel. I mean, they remind me of the Redskins. Excuse me, the Commanders. Put a quarter in the swear jar. I'm still calling them the Redskins. They're the veteran players. I mean, come on. What are they doing? They think they're a Super Bowl contender. I don't see it. I don't see it. And by the way, Christian McCaffrey's history is when he has that big touch season like he had last year, he gets hurt the next year.
Yeah, right. Here's Studer. I think Kyler gets back in MVP talks this year. That's a big projection. I won't go that far, but it is a good roster. It's probably his best roster of his NFL career.
Well, if that's the case, they're going to be really good. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, they would.
He had that 6 or 7 game run before he got hurt. He hasn't been the same player since he had that injury. But he's a better quarterback than people give him credit for. There's a lot of people who are just bailed on him. Like he's a problem to deal with if you have everything around him. And there'll be instances where he's so short that it'll affect you. You get balls batted down, but I mean he is gifted. And there's no excuses for him because that team is loaded with playmakers and they have an above average offensive line. A little bit concerned over center, but we'll see how that shakes out. But back to the 49ers, I think they look like a 9-8, 8-9 team to me.
We'll see. All right, John, anything in the AFC? I wanted to close it up with the roster, so let's try and do the AFC a little quick. What sticks out in the AFC? You got the AFC East, North, South, and West, obviously. We'll start in the East. Bills, Patriots? What do you think?
Yeah, it's Buffalo is I think the Patriots have a better overall roster. The Bills are obviously moving into a new era with Joe Brady as the head coach now, but that should be seamless because, he's been working with Josh Allen. So it should be a definitely another two-horse race because the Dolphins might be the worst roster in football and the Jets are close behind. So I think both are playoff teams. But I think Buffalo inches above New England, who will have the tougher schedule now and have to deal with that. So I think But they both should be playoff teams.
AFC, we'll go to the North next, John. You think the Ravens get it? Steelers with Aaron Rodgers? Bengals with Joe Burrow? What do you think?
Here I am. Where am I?
Ravens.
Eve of the regular season. Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore stinking Ravens. Again, they've made a change. So you don't know what you're going to have in Jesse Minter. They're trying to sort of replicate what Mike McDonald, their old defensive coordinator, did in Seattle. And he is one of the young, cutting-edge defensive guys. You saw him unload some blitzes in the preseason that the Eagles had no idea what they were doing against. So he's got a little of that Flores chaos in him. So I think the defense is going to be good. And then it comes down to the offense. Well, they're going to be good. Is Lamar going to get back to MVP Lamar? Probably not. How long can Derrick Henry do it at his age? Who knows? They're a little bit better. I'll tell you, Zay Flowers is underrated, I think, but they're a little bit better at wide receiver. I like Jacoby Lane. And they also had Elijah Sherratt. They both look good to me. Two rookies. The offensive line is still good. They drafted Vega, who I thought was one of the safest picks in the draft. I mean, I think they're clearly going to win the division, and the only thing that could upset that is a big year from Joe Burrow, who I'm sure, if he stays healthy, will have a big year. But I mean, a big Joe Burrow year. I don't mean he's always going to have a big year. I mean, a MVP level performance, and that could get the Browns back in the conversation. The Bengals, excuse me. Now, they reloaded on the defensive front. They got Dexter Lawrence. They got Boye Mafe from Seattle, and they brought in Jonathan Allen as well. Tail end of his career, but he can still play a little bit. Still don't like the back seven, though. So there's a lot of pressure on that defensive front. And Al Golden is the defensive coordinator, former Temple head coach. But good guy, Al Golden. But I think Baltimore's clearly the best team, and Cincinnati's the one team that could upset them if everything goes well. Cleveland's a mess with the quarterbacks. And Pittsburgh, you're moving away from Mike Tomlin. I think people give Mike McCarthy too much shit, but I think he's a good coach, and they'll be a good team. But 9-8, somewhere in that range.
AFC South, J-Mac, what do you think? Titans, Jags, Colts, and Texans. I think the Texans there.
Texans. Texans, if CJ Stroud fixes whatever the hell was going on, they're a Super Bowl contender. I mean, that defense is just loaded. Starts with Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter up front. Al-Shaair is a great linebacker. And then the secondary is just ridiculous with Stingley and Lassiter and Petrie and Bullock and now Reed Blankenship as well. They have one of the best secondaries in football. Can CJ Stroud recapture some of the magic he had as a rookie? I don't know. Offensive line is average, so that doesn't help. They brought in David Montgomery to be the lead back. He's not a lead back. He's the rotation. He's the, what do they call him? Sonic and what? What is it? What is the Gibbs in Montgomery? What was it?
Sonic and Knuckles, right?
Yeah, he's Knuckles. You need Sonic. And obviously it's tough to get Jahmyr Gibbs, but you need that type of back. So their defense is Super Bowl ready. What is the offense going to do? But that they're going to win that division. Indianapolis was playing well till Daniel Jones got hurt. How many injuries before Daniel Jones has nothing left? I don't know. You got to see that. Taylor's great, obviously. I can't believe they paid Alec Pierce all that money, and I had to go out and get Keenan Allen, who's obviously Shane Steichen, Nick Sirianni loved that guy. Surprised he wasn't here, but he's a little bit too old, I guess. They're good, not great, I guess I would say, is Indy and Jacksonville. They had a good season last year. Trevor Lawrence bounced back. Something about Trevor Lawrence. I can't put my finger on it.
I know. I'm with you on it. What do you think of the West, John?
West, Denver.
I think Chargers for me.
I still think Denver's the best team, but yeah, I mean, already people are raving about Mike McDaniel, yada, yada, but I don't put as much onus on the coaches as, but it will be interesting to see what he can do with Herbert. So maybe they'll have the explosive offense. It'll certainly be somewhat explosive because they always are. Still not in love with their defense. Although they had a good year defensively last year, but they're one of those teams where, other than Derwin James, who's tremendous, and Tui Pelotu, who had a good year. Khalil Mack is ageless, but he's sort of like not. He's a good player. He's going to be a good pass rusher, but he's got a little bit of Von Miller in him. He's not what he once was. So they're a good team, but I would say Denver's still the better team. Although I'd much rather have Justin Herbert than Bo Nix. But
yeah, no doubt.
That kind of evens the playing field a little bit. But that you talk about defense, that's another. A lot of good defenses in this league now, and Denver is in the conversation to be the best. They're another. They're just really good defensively.
Yep, no doubt. All right, Johnny, man, a couple more minutes to go in the show here.